few rules that we need to follow. Not a whole lot, but what we do have are important. My first rule is that we ask that you please don't eat or drink on our boat. We do have a lot of critters here in the Metro Parks, as I'm sure you've already seen. I don't know about y'all, but I don't really want to ride a boat with a rat. Do you?
No.
No. So, if you could just keep anything with your crumbs in a bag, in your pocket, wherever you're keeping your food, just not out on our boat right now. So, we have that. You can, whoa, I just tripped over all of my words. You can have water, but everything else, keep it away. The second rule is that when you come onto the boat, I would like you to find a seat and stay in the seat, because our boat does bump around a little bit, like I mentioned, and I would hate for anybody to fall down and get hurt. It's just not fun. Third rule is most important. If you have somehow blocked out everything I've said to this point, I want you to listen to this one. So, my third rule is that we ask that you keep your fingers, hands, nose, toes, preferably your entire body, inside the boat at all times. I can't have you sticking your hands out the windows, okay? What's going to happen is we're going to go through a stone lock. The lock has stone walls. That lock is about 15 feet wide, while our boat is about 14 feet wide. If you're doing the math here, it's about 6 inches while we're in the lock before your fingers start to feel a little bit smushed. Picking up what I'm putting down. Yes, I would like everybody to leave here today with the same amount of fingers that they came here with.
Okay.
All right? All right. You ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yes. All
I'm ready.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Vamos a ver. El Chihuahua. Hágale otra vuelta, hágale otra vuelta. Dale otra vuelta. Bueno, pues nadie me quiere ayudar a grabar. Ayúdame, hombre. ¿Qué sabes decir? Santi.
¿Y esta que me chihuahua, Wendy?
¿Qué traemos el chihuahuita? ¿Y si lo tiramos un clavado ahí?
Es bueno sería. Prepárese, porque nos tiramos.
¿Y quién lo va a manejar?
Ella, la chava.
¿O ella lo maneja?
Ah. Espérate, mi amor. Espérate, mi amor.
What's the name of the boat? On the boat first.
What's the name of the boat?
The boat is the Volunteer.
Volunteer.
Can I allow to take my dog with me?
Dog? I don't think so. I heard it back there. I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you.
But go to the front of the boat first.
¿Me va a ayudar? ¿Quién me va a ayudar? ¿A dónde?
Everyone out top.
Campeón, ahí te vas a estar. Venga, yo quiero en el sol. No puedes ir ahí.
No, sí que yo me voy a sentar aquí. Bueno, pues. Y mire, ya se fijó. Ya se fijó aquí.
Sí, la muchacha que vio el perro, pero no sabía dónde estaba.
Pues no, ya se fijó que hay un cuero de como de
De Tacocín.
tacuacín.
¿Y quién va a tocar ahí? Ready for the ride? No.
Thank you, Steve.
Ujú.
I don't know you guys are waiting for us.
Well, hello, folks.
How are you?
Hello.
Welcome. My name is Josiah White, and I'm a member of the boat crew. And on behalf of the crew and Captain Doppelbach, we'd like to welcome all of you to the beautiful Miami and Erie Canal and to our humble boat, the Volunteer. Now, the captain sends his regrets. He's not able to be with us right now. He must have hit his head.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes he rings his bell up there on those bridges. So folks, the captain sends his regrets because he's not able to be with us right now. He's working with a farmer in Defiance to bring about 40 head of hogs on board here. It looks like, well, we might have enough room for those hogs to run. How many of you are going all the way to Cincinnati with us?
No, but
Just a few? Well, how many of you are getting off at Defiance?
be fine.
Oh, nobody. Well, that's all right. Usually when I talk about the hogs, folks want to get off before they get on. But after they get on, a lot of us will be riding up on top of the boat here. And there is a special rule for riding topside that I'll tell you all about, but not right now because, well, you need to tell you about something else. Well, first of all, let me ask you this. How many of you have ridden a canal boat before? A few of you have, most of you have not. So I will have to tell you about the lock, because sometimes folks get a little disturbed when they go into that little room for the first time. So I'll try to alleviate any fears that you might have. Now, usually the captain's on board to tell folks about the boat and about the canal and about some of the things you're likely to encounter on your journey. Well, since he isn't here, he left it to me. And truth be told, I could talk to you all the way to Cincinnati. That's a 6-day ride. And tell you stories about this canal and not repeat myself once. But I won't do that right now, because sometimes it's easier to tell a story with a song than it is to just tell the story. So this is part of a song about the Miami and Erie Canal that'll tell you a little bit about it. From Lake Erie down to the Ohio River, pulled along by 2 mules at 4 miles an hour, bringing commerce and settlers to the western frontier on the Miami and Erie Canal. Well, that song was written by a friend of mine, Patty O'Rourke. And Patty and I worked together on the Davenport down in the Ohio River for a few years. And, well, if anybody knows about this canal, it's Patty O'Rourke, because he's one of the fellows who came here in 1837, came from Ireland, he did, to help build this canal. Now, he told me they called this area the Great Black Swamp back then.
What?
And he was telling me that sometimes they were digging in mud and muck clear up to their vest. And all they had to work with were shovels and picks and wheelbarrows and their own strong backs. And this is the part of the song that he wrote about that. I was one of the navvies who worked with shovels and picks for 30 cents a day to dig this big ditch. We ate cornbread and beans washed down with some whiskey, and we lay down to sleep in our small wooden shanties. We dug this canal, it was 40 feet wide, then cleared out the towpath 10 feet on each side. There were 103 locks that took the boats up and down. They were pulled by 2 mules, just poked along. Well, that's all the singing I'm going to do for now, because we are getting close to the lock. I promised I'd tell you about that. Now, normally, we'd be approaching a lock this close, and we'd be out in the center of the canal, and not over here on the side. But we can't even see the lock right now because of that bridge. Now that bridge is there because the folks across the river in Grand Rapids, they called it Gilead back then, changed the name 8 years ago. The folks over there were upset because the canal was on this side of the river and not on their side. So to show their displeasure, they plopped this wagon bridge right down in the middle of our canal. So now, Lock 44 North, the Providence Lock, the lock we're going to, is the only lock in North America and maybe the world where you have to go in on an angle. Well, in a moment, Mr. Monroe is going to come up here. He's going to walk across the catwalk to the front of the boat, and he's going to take a 12-foot long pike pole. And when we get to the other side of the bridge here, he's going to push that pole into the towpath and push us, try to give us a better angle to get into that lock. Now, what is a lock? Well, it's 2 things. It's a little room and it's a stair step. Because if you were going from Toledo to Cincinnati, you'd start off in Toledo, you'd be going up over 300 feet to the Loramie Summit at New Bremen, and then at the other end of the summit, at Lockington, you'd be going down over 500 feet until you got to the Ohio River in Cincinnati. Well, if you were going up and down in your house, you use the stair steps. Well, that's what this is. It's a stair step on the canal to help get us up and down to those levels. But it's really nothing more than a little room. It's 80 feet long inside, 15 feet wide. It has gates at both ends, big gates. They call them whaler gates or miter gates. And they weigh 3.5 tons apiece. And they look a little bit like this washboard. And up on top of those gates, there are handles. Those handles are attached to gates that are under the water. You can't see them, they're always underwater. And when we get in that lock, we'll tie up the boat, close the gates behind us, and that locks us into that little room. And then we'll Well, folks, don't be disturbed about that. That's just us disconnecting from the mules. That was just a small splash. If it was a big splash, it would have been Mr. Monroe falling in the canal again. But he hasn't done that since last week. But those big gates, they have the wicket gates underneath, attached to the handles. So when we get locked in here, we're going to pull the handles on those gates ahead of us. That's going to move those wicket gates sideways, just like that. That's how the water comes in and out of our lock. Now, when the water comes into the lock, this boat's going to go backwards and forwards. It's going to go sideways. It's going to hit one wall, maybe two, maybe more than once. We never know. It's always different. But if your hand is outside this boat and it hits the lock wall, it's going to break your hand. So always keep your hand, keep your head, keep your feet, keep your neck, keep everything inside the boat while we're in the lock. That way you stay safe. So I just saw Mr. Monroe all hopping off the boat here. That can only mean one thing. He's at the lockmaster, after he opened these gates for us, probably went back to the general store to finish his card game.
Entonces lo van a pillar en
So
otro
I'm
lado
going to have
nosotros,
to
lo van a
go
volver a
up
traer para
outside
acá.
and help us lock through. So in just a moment, I'm going to head up there. Just remember, always keep your hands and your heads and everything inside the boat, because this boat's going to start moving once we pull those gates, pull those handles up there.
Es como modo de antes ya. Todo es de antiguo. Y él le va contando la
All right,
historia.
I'm heading up. I'll be back in just a moment.
Okay.
Ok. No. Yo pensé que al malo iban a llevar.
Al malo ya porque le cobra su madre.
Aquí no sé por qué me están nadando.
Dale de quien pueda. No,